the talk today is about my journey both internally and externally over the last few years. But before I begin, I want to say that think of this as two friends talking, you know. I don't want to be talking at you. I want you to be involved in this, and how we're going to do that is, while you're paying attention to what I'm saying, I want to request you to also pay attention to what you're thinking when you're hearing me speak. And I'll tell you towards the end why I want to run this experiment. So let's begin by looking at the mindset of the person I was before I left New Zealand to explore the big world. I was just finishing engineering at the University of Auckland, which kind of just felt like passing a bunch of exams, just like school again. I would forget most things between semester breaks. I think I was amazed by my ability to forget than to learn while I was there. Yeah. I think in retrospect, I was there to just make friends, and I'm glad I did. But something interesting happened in third year of my university. I found out about this competition called Imagine Cup. Now, Imagine Cup is the world's biggest technology competition. And what the theme of the competition is to use technology to solve the world's toughest issues. They leave it quite broad and open. And an issue that I grew up in India. My father was in the army there, so I traveled around a lot. I grew up in 16 cities. So I always saw that illiteracy was a big problem. You know, and the thing with illiteracy is that if you can educate a country's population, they can solve their own problems. The world doesn't have to step in every time something goes wrong. And this was very empowering. I had heard of this organization called OLPC. It's called One Laptop Per Child. So what these guys do is they create these very low-cost laptops that distribute all over the world. There are about 30 to 40 million of these laptops in the developing world. But the problem is that these laptops are in areas that don't have internet. So, well, how do you send books to them, software to them, games to them? This is a problem I was passionate about solving. And how we solved this was with a technology called OneBeep. Now, what OneBeep does is that let's say you have a book. Let's say you have a PDF of a maths book that you want to send to these computers. What OneBeep does is it turns that book into a sound file. Not a sound of spoken word, but a sound of certain frequencies that you can just play like music over the radio. At the other end, you can plug the radio into the computer using an aux cable. The sound goes from the radio into the computer, and our algorithms turn that sound back to the original file. And the beauty of this technology also was that it's a broadcast mechanism, right? So it's one to many. So one tower, you can update thousands of computers at the same time. We did quite well in the competition. We came third in the world out of 500,000 students from 127 countries. And yeah, that was... And I was very pumped, you know. I came back, I was going to change the world, and like many of you in this room, I didn't need food, water, protein. You know, the aim was enough to fuel me. But then I kind of got my first dose of what they call the real world. My university was coming towards an end, and my team decided that they were going to go into jobs, and I was left alone with the project. So I reached out to many universities in New Zealand and asked for help. They said they would help, but they needed a lot of money in return, money which I didn't have. The government also kind of gave me a pat on the back, but no help came from them either. Then I heard about somebody said Intel could help me, so I went to meet Intel in Portugal. And I also reached out to many people at OLPC, the laptop company. And they all loved the project. They were blown away by the technology, but nobody came to help, you know. I was pretty pissed off. Then I decided to get this one-way ticket and go to India. And why India? Because I knew India needed such a technology. And I also knew certain people in the government there. So I thought they could probably help me connect with the right people. Months passed. I was bounced between one department and another. And somehow I got back to the same person I started off with, you know. I was really getting agitated. It's 1.5 years of me trying to get this project off ground. Now I'm living in my cousin's house in India, spending my father's hard-earned money on my daily expenses. And you know, sometimes you throw yourself completely at life, and you're there all the time and still doesn't work out. And I've seen many people give up at that time, you know. You'll be surprised by, and I'm being realistic, many people even in this room will give up on their dreams just because it's taking too long. Many people. But I want to tell you that if you're true, and nobody else can tell you if you are, only you know inside. You don't need anybody else's authority or approval. And if you keep at it, life comes to help you out. In my scenario, it came to help me out because this guy who just saw this talk of mine on YouTube, he reached out to me. This brilliant guy, one of the smartest developers of software programmers I'd ever met. He comes from a very poor background, and he had got these job offers from all these big companies, Amazon, Microsoft, and he gave them up just because he saw a talk of mine. And he reached out to me. He was like, I want to do something with you. I was like, okay, weirdo. And but I was, I was like, okay, he saw passion in me, I saw passion in him. And we were both passionate about bringing a change. But I think because of my experiences, I decided then I'm never going to depend on other people's money. And what was decided was we are going to build a company and build a tool to help people keep track of their ideas. This was something I needed a lot, he needed it. And we thought that, we'd build the tool, we'll sell the licenses, get the money, and then do our thing with the social projects that we wanted to be involved in. 2 years passed, right? Nothing was released to public. We just kept making designs, kept making full products. We made 3 products, and we threw them all away because we just weren't happy. And in this period, I realized I had also become a very controlling person. I was becoming a bit dominating person. When I look back, I think one of the main reasons why was my fears and insecurity that people that I trust and depend on will leave, like my team previously did. And this was a very deep fear that I had. And I also kind of I was living in Bali at the time, and I distanced myself from a lot of my friends in New Zealand because I thought I'll go back when I've made it, And that was stupid. But at that time, Devesh came out to me and he said, just for a change, do you want to do a project for underprivileged kids? And this is something that's very close to my heart. It's very much easier to build strong children than to fix broken adults. And I read this quote a long time ago, and it's been stuck in my head. And I wanted to do something for underprivileged kids as well. So what we did was we ran an event, which turned out to be the biggest event in India for underprivileged kids. And we had these kids from very poor backgrounds, and we gave them just a space to just be, just chill out. 2 days workshops on art and sports. And, it was beautiful to watch them. They were very happy. It was a feeling of happiness that I had not felt for a while. You would physically feel it between, when I was there in that event. And it changed something inside me. Because, those kids, they almost had no sense of memory of their life outside and their hardships. They were completely there. And when we give them that safe environment, creativity was just flowing through them. They were writing poems, singing songs, doing these outrageous dance moves. You just had to be there to see them. And I realized that I wanted to kind of build such an environment for my team as well. And I had to let go of my fears for that, right? So I started asking my team, what are they really passionate about in their own lives? And what I started realizing was music was something that we were all very passionate about, and we were pissed off that artists weren't getting the money that they should be getting. So we just went and built an app for independent artists in India to distribute their music to listeners in Pakistan as well, and it's now growing very fast. Devesh was very interested in education, and he's always been, so we're now doing a project with UNESCO to build tools for people to build digital books very quickly and distribute them. Reva, the children's event, will happen in 3 cities in India next year. Even the note-taking and the idea collaboration tool that we were building, took shape, and it was released a few months ago. And all of this was suddenly happening because I had let go of my fear. And I was giving freedom to people around me, and they were growing, and I was growing with them. So this led to one of the most important lessons in my life, that passion actually dies, but the people around you can protect it, right? And so it's our utmost responsibility as well to reach out to people that we think are passionate in our lives and be there for them. It's because not just about you and me, it's about this collective feeling of us. And at this time, I'd also kind of given up trying to change the world. I was not very interested in that. Initially I was, but now I wasn't very interested in the problem because I was realizing I had changed this small thing inside me, and already the world around me was changing. And this was very powerful for me. Even when I'm getting the goosebumps now. I was spending a lot of time just sitting down quietly in my room, just watching what's happening in my head. All the thoughts buzzing around, and I was realizing that more I was figuring out what's happening inside me, I was getting an understanding of what's happening around in the world, and I was very specifically looking at fear when fear was born in me every time I should think about something or a particular thing. And I was realizing the vast majority of the world is driven on fear. The world I come from, technology, is driven on fear, fear of missing out. We are drowning in these bloody notifications from this app and that app, and because we are afraid that what we might miss out on. Media, the news is driving on fear. It's almost like creating a distrust between people. Not all people are evil, but still, if you look, I don't have a TV in my house for 6 years, and I don't touch the evil newspaper. The government as well, if you see what's happening in the US with Donald Trump doesn't scare me as much as the whole generation of people who have bred on fear that have made Trump possible, right? And Trump might not get selected, and I don't think he will, but those people will still be there, right? And fear makes you think only about yourself, right? It's very, closes you up, and this is leading to this rise of individualism. I'm seeing people are becoming more and more self-centered and just thinking about themselves. And it's ironic because even the word individual, it comes from the root word indivisible, something that cannot be divided. And yet, we have never been more divided, and this division is being used in terms of nationalism, which is, if you really look at it, nationalism is just an over-glorified form of tribalism. And we really need to see this. Huh? And all of this was just by looking at one fear, right? All of these learnings were not by reading a paper or something, but just looking inside, right? And I want to try and kind of, try to unlock something in your brain today from what I've learned. Just for an experiment, just look into the person's eye who is sitting beside you. Look there for a second, right? The only true difference, see how uncomfortable it can make us feel just to look another person in the eye? Like, what is he thinking? The only true difference between you and this person are your memories. That's the only difference. Right? This is a very deep truth. With nothing, all other things are superficial. Only difference between you two are your memories. And this was, when I realized this was something that really awoken something inside me as well, and I started learning about the mind more. And I'm not a specialist in the mind, but friends of mine who are, who protect my passion, they keep reminding me that the Wright brothers didn't need a pilot's license, so we can begin. If you look at memory is what gives birth to our process of behavior, right? And memory is very awesome as well. It teaches you language, you can operate things, go from here to there. But when you start operating from our memory, which is our hurts, our desires, our demands, then we stop looking at life new. You can't be like those kids who had forgotten all about the rest of the world and they were just there. Memory is an isolating process, and what memory does is memory gives birth to thought, if you really look at it. And I'll give you an example of this. I had a memory of my team leaving me, and every time I would think about it, I would get this negativity fueling through me, and which would lead me to being a controlling person. So I was seeing this loop in many things in my life, memory, thought, action, over and over again. And sadly, you can't really erase your memory, but what you can do is be very, very acutely aware of your thoughts. And when you spend time doing this, right, what will happen is you slowly, and it will be a very slow and painful process because you will find things inside you will not like. But in this process, what will happen is you will stop being driven by your negative emotions. I'll give you an example of this. See, what we usually think is that our mind is there and there are thoughts inside it, but the actual model is a bit different. And again, I'm not a specialist, this is just from my own understanding. There's a whole layer of the subconscious mind between you and your thought. And we are not aware of what this subconscious mind makes us do, right? And the only way to slowly get a hang of what the subconscious mind is doing is to look at your thought like a hawk. You have to be like an observer, just sit quietly and just see what's happening in your head. And you'll start realizing, and slowly like a jigsaw puzzle, coming together, this image will start, you'll start seeing this. And what this will do is that it'll create space in your head. You'll literally feel it. You'll feel the silence building up. It'll take a long time, but it's worth the journey. And what this space does is it creates space for creative solutions to be. You'll start looking at same problems very differently. And see, why I'm telling you this is because you'll be surprised by how many of the, it's really about, I saw this board outside which said that you have to really fall in love with the problem. And that can't happen till you are just always so agitated about how do I solve it. You have to stay with it, right? And that can only happen when you learn that, when your mind is quiet, when there are no ripples in it, when the problem stays there, it unfolds and you see more of it. And it's like, because I could teach you give you many theories, it's like giving you a fish, but if you really understand what I'm trying to get at here, you will understand how to fish. And I want to leave you with a final experiment, that spend your day, go out, sit under a tree, a real tree, and spend a whole day there, right? Don't take a book, don't take your phone with you, just spend the day with yourself. And when you're there, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Because to be very honest, what the world needs is people who have come alive. And when you figure out what makes you come alive, just go do that. And I promise you that our future really will be a festival. Thank you.